exciting time. Like you bring in AI and new ideas, and you just have to be brave enough to try it because what the hell?
Hello, everyone. I am Lee McKnight Jr. I'm the VP of Sales for RSW US, Outsourced Business Development for ad agencies of all types. This is Cut to the Chase, the RSW US interview series that delivers impactful views from ad agency principals, business development leaders on growth strategies, and the challenges that come with it in today's weird, evolving landscape. And I'm happy to finally be able to introduce Janet Carlson, and she's the CEO and creative director of copy of the 111 Group. Y'all are in Connecticut, Janet, correct?
Yes. We were born in New York City, and we moved up to Northwest Connecticut over a decade ago.
Nice. Now, we start things off. We have some questions that we're going to ask you. There's one that you're not going to be aware of, and it's a tradition here on Cut to the Chase.
Nice.
Where we throw it out, and it's kind of a would you rather situation. And so the question to start off, a little icebreaker, is this: would you rather read? I'm cracking myself up. That's sad. Would you rather read Fabio? You know Fabio?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you rather read Fabio's ghost-written plunge into fiction titled Viking while in a Shark Tank, or answer an RFP?
I'd really rather do anything with Fabio, actually. Yeah.
You don't even know.
And actually, we don't do RFPs anymore.
Oh, there you go. Well, perfect.
We don't do RFPs.
Then, and you shouldn't. Good for you.
No, thank you. Fabio's kind of hot, actually.
I'm not taking that away from him.
Now. I know. Is he like 90 now?
He might. I don't know if he's that old, but I don't know if I want to read that book. But instead of an RFP,
I doubt it.
Yes,
yeah,
I think
he probably
maybe.
has the IQ of a turnip. But yeah, anything with Fabio would be great. Thanks.
Quite possibly. So there's our icebreaker. And
Indeed.
the reason, let's jump in, because the reason that I say final is I'd asked you to be here on the show. This is our 10th episode, actually. And I think you were going to be the second. And for a lot of reasons, I mean, and let's jump into the first question, because you had a year in 2023. And I want to start at that. And I want to preface it and then let you go that you blew up your agency.
Yep.
You had a pretty serious health scare. And then all while sending, correct me if I'm wrong here, multiple kids to college as well?
3.
Yeah.
3.
All in the year. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, so one kind of prefaces the other, I suppose. So in May, I knew something was wrong. And I went to the doctor and I got a biopsy, and she goes, "Oh yeah, you have cancer." So that sucked. But the good news is it's early stage. Yeah. You never want to hear that. And you go through that whole process.
No. Wow.
It's but when you have an early diagnosis and you have an excellent surgeon and you have a team you can trust, then it becomes not so terrible. The terrible part was I had to keep it secret from my family for 8 weeks. The only person who knew was my husband.
Oh, wow.
So because I had 3 kids who were seniors in high school.
Sure.
And I wasn't going to be the part of their, senior year like that. It just wasn't going to be a thing. Yeah. So they graduated, all 3 of them over a 4.2 GPA, by the way. Thank you very much. Wow. Yeah, so they're super smart kids.
No kidding.
They were all accepted to colleges that they wanted to go to.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So it was beautiful. Our entire family was here, and then the kids graduated. We did the graduation party, and the next day I told them that I was having surgery in a week.
Oh my gosh!
So but you know what? But the whole family was there to support us,
right?
And everything went absolutely perfectly. However, as prepared as I was for surgery, it was really a difficult recovery. So it took me about 3 weeks to recover. I just had trouble moving. So so it's just, but what I found out of that experience was the best thing that could have happened to me. In all honesty, I had to stop for 3 weeks. I had to stop. All I could do was really think. Reading sometimes was difficult because some of the medications they had me on.
Okay.
So all I could do was kind of go into my own head and think. And so what I thought was, I don't want to be doing the same shit that I was doing before. And so when I was able to get back to work, I sat my team down and I said, "We're going to do something different. Who's with me?" And they're all like, "What the hell?" so then they said, "Tell us more." So that's where I blew up the agency. So,
Okay.
and then in the end of August, beginning of September, all 3 children went off to college. So the good news is, they could see me recovered. I took them, with my husband to college, got them all shipped off. And then I went to work and I was able to dig in on this new model, which we launched in October.
Okay.
So there you have it.
Wow.
I know,
and
right?
I can't even imagine. And I want to just let you and kind of start off with that, just because that's unique to anyone we've had on this podcast.
Yeah, before. It was big. But you know what? Like I said, oddly, best thing that could have happened. If you're writing and working within the healthcare arena, to have experience. I mean, how many years have I worked in oncology?
Right.
20, 25.
Wow.
And I had no idea. You don't really understand it until you've experienced it. Let me tell you. Like one of the first products that we were working on was oncology. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, hilarious. But I wrote in a very different way because we were working on both healthcare professional and consumer. Very different voice.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. And so, well, let's go in. Let's, and thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, it's amazing. And thankfully it turned out the way that it did, which is really impressive across the board. So I'm glad you're here. And
thank you. Thank you. Me too.
I'm sure. Tell us a little bit more about 111. And by the way, if folks are looking, and we're going to put all the links to your site and to your LinkedIn, but it's 1.11 in terms of if people are looking for it on LinkedIn or on the site. But talk to us about, what type of firm, and you've already mentioned a little bit where you play, but tell us a little bit about that and kind of where you're focused, because if it's solely focused on healthcare or not as well.
Okay. So really, when I had that time to think, what I realized was a lot of these medium and small companies, primarily we play in healthcare, but there's other industries, we'll play in, a lot of small businesses, and somehow they're tied to healthcare, like physical therapy or a medical practice or a hospital, like a lot of senior living. So there's stuff that's just not pharma. It's more, like there's healthcare centric, I guess. So what we do is we create a brand map for a company. So what it is, it's a structured interview that lasts about 90 minutes. And we go through, I'd say 55 questions or so that really get to the heart of where they are, what challenges they have, and where they want to go. So really the map is, you are here, you want to be here. We write that map to get you there. Okay. And so, you do the interview, then within a week-ish, I used to say, like exactly a week, but that's crazy. Don't do that because you never know. You might need a little more time with something. Sure. But we'll deliver the brand map. And then that's when you go into the brand venture. So basically it's looking at the tactics they need to get from here to there. Okay. And we can deliver them. They can do it themselves or they can hire somebody else. So they have a map in front of them to get to where they want to go, and they can choose how they want to move forward. Okay. So in that sense, is it fair to say you all are a brand consultancy, or not exactly, because you're actually, you're going beyond that? We're doing the work. It's just, I think it's just a different flavor of agency. Okay. We did our own brand map, and what we discovered was we don't really like to be on call all the time. So having someone call and say, hey, we need an ad for this. We need to update our website. We need social media updates, whatever. Yeah. It's just like the on-demand chop, drove me crazy and drove the team crazy. So what we decided to do was, we're driving the bus. Okay. So we do the download, we make the plan. If they decide to move forward with us, then we said, you know what? Okay, fantastic. We'll move forward. Here's the timeline. The timeline is much faster. So it's not months or years that you're doing these things. Because sometimes, websites would take 6 months. Oh, and easy. We just didn't want to do that anymore. Okay. So it's really step aside, speed your ride. Okay. Kind of model. Nice. And just not, if we get a website done in a week, as opposed to 3 months, what we bill is our business. The hours it takes is our business. We no longer do the billable hours. Oh, okay. Having worked in very large agencies, the billable hours, parade that you get into, it's just, I just don't feel it serves the client, and it certainly doesn't serve us, because you get into endless revisions. When you're on number 38 revision of a brochure, you want to kill yourself. So, but getting away, not to go too far down this path, but it's interesting because I didn't realize that and there's a lot of other agency folks who have tried, and consultants to lead that charge.
and it just will, right. It's not going away. I mean, I feel like it's making some headway in some ways, but that's interesting.
But we said no. So there have been clients that said, like, this is how we want to work. And I said, that's not how we work. So we're happy to refer you. Wow. So it's simple. We're just not going to play.
Okay. But most of the clients, I mean, they're your clients, so that they've been fine with it, or they've accepted it.
Yeah, they've been fine with it.
Yeah.
Well, because, like, I mean, for example, we just rebranded a medical practice. It consists of 4 APRNs. So advanced practice registered nurses. So, this practice, and I got a train going by.
Whoa, I was like,
I know. No, you'll see it in just a second.
Oh, I like it.
Hang on 2 seconds. I'm gonna
stop. Oh my God, it's literally going by.
Literally going by. Yeah, it's short.
I know, it's the shortest train I've ever seen.
No, they're just it's just the engine going to pick up another train. So
it's literally the engine.
Train here in a little bit. Yep.
Fun. And it was blue.
And it was blue. Where was I? I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, we're definitely keeping that in, and it's answering you. We were talking about billable hours and just getting away from that.
Yeah, so it's just it's just became the soul sucking part of things, where it was always like you're always on call, and the endless revisions, just to crank up those billable hours. Sure, I just don't believe in it. It goes against the grain, and I like I said, it doesn't serve the agency people because it's the soul sucking part of it, and then the clients have to resent that because they have to keep repeatedly approving version after version after version. Sure. If I had to see that day after day, I'd shoot myself. Yeah. So we said, we're not doing that anymore.
I love it. So far we've got 9 certain RFPs, not doing billable hours. That's awesome. Yeah. Your terms, I dig it. And I think it's interesting because you went here a little bit, just so folks know. Tell us a little bit about your background, because specifically, you didn't correct me. You didn't start in the agency world. You started your career at Parke-Davis, which is Pfizer. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I had intended to go to med school my whole life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so when I was a senior, I went for my med school interviews, and they said, "Hey, you ready to be here in September?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "What the hell?" And I said, "I know, right?" I said, "I'm going to take a year. I need a year just to kind of, because I'd worked really hard. I graduated with a 3.8. Wow. And in biochemistry, it was tough. And so I just said, I just need a little bit of a break. Sure. I went to work for Parke-Davis. I interviewed against 600 people.
What?
Yeah. That's how many people were interviewing for those jobs. Yeah. Wow. So the guy had interviewed me. His name's Bob. I can't remember his last name right now. But he said, there's 599 people applying for this job. And I said, "Well, you're done, sir." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm here." So he did hire me. I know, he did hire me.
I love it. And
I became nationally ranked in all my brands. So what I figured out was I didn't have to call on all the doctors. What I had to call on was 50 doctors who were writing the scripts. So what the reps used to do was call on everybody. So they promoted me in-house. So everybody wanted to go in-house to do marketing. And, so I got promoted in-house. What I found out is that it really sucks to be in-house. In-house is not fun. I worked they created a hybrid job for me. It was between sales and marketing. I don't know what in God's name this is. Okay. Yeah, we're filling the oil tank. It's just a cacophony outside.
I really is.
I know.
Let's wait till it goes by.
So I went, this is never ending. So I went in-house. It was I think it was a disaster. I think there's no other way to put it. It was an absolute disaster. Really? I was good at, I worked hard, but I really hated it. Okay. And my boss hated me too, because I'm an ideator and I came up with bright ideas. I actually still have my bright ideas mug that they gave me.
Nice.
They started a committee for me for new ideas. It was basically so I would stop coming up with ideas and basically, just do my work.
Yeah.
So.
Understood.
That was fun. And then,
but it has helped inform everything that you're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I wouldn't be the same person I was. I have a saying: you can't be who you are unless you've been where you've been. That's really what it boils down to.
Right.
So friends of mine said, "Hey, you know what? You might do better on the agency side." And when I saw the agency people, they were always way happier than anybody else.
Okay.
So I went and interviewed in New York City. I interviewed at five agencies. Ralph Warner Rosenthal hired me. They became NCI Advertising, and then they, I can't, Publicis. I think it was
okay. There you go.
Sucked up by Publicis. Yeah, so I opted out of med school again. So in that time, I did go up to Columbia, and I was talking to Columbia about going to med school. And I sat and thought about it, and I was like, you know what? This is not my destiny.
Oh, wow. So you almost went back.
I think what I'm going to do, I almost went back. Yeah, it was
Wow.
close. My mother last week pointed out if I was a doctor, it's not still too late to go to med school.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right.
they're holding out hope that I will someday go to med school. I think they're going to have to hold their breath till my next life. Well, you never know.
You never know. That's awesome. Well, it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, whenever we are our own agency clients, it's always, it doesn't have to be a thing, but when you do have the experience on the client side, and then, you sat on the other side of that table, can definitely inform, especially from a business development standpoint,
Sure.
How you're reaching out to these folks and connecting with them at that level. Yeah. So I think that's great. Could definitely be helpful.
I went to work. So, the reason when I found out I was an entrepreneur, Chris Whittle hired me from the agency. So Chris Whittle started the Medical News Network. He hired, I think there were 10 of us. I was the only female executive. So
Okay.
There were 10 of us that ran the Medical News Network. I was in charge of the J&J business. So I think I was 27. And here I was in charge of all the J&J companies, which there were 5. So there were 5 presidents that I dealt with. I remember going in the bathroom and practicing introducing myself because I had to stand up in front of these 5 guys and say something that didn't sound like utter horseshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I realized they put their pants on just like me.
Sure.
And after that, I didn't have any trouble with it.
Nice. That's awesome.
And I worked for Whittle for a couple of years.
Okay.
Whittle, spent too much money. And that's when I launched my first agency, which was focused on healthcare professionals. It was the first digital advertising agency that focused on HCPs.
Oh, really? Wow.
1994. Nice. Yep.
Wow.
That's where I started.
Very cool. Awesome. And no, I love that trajectory and just how you've gotten to where you are. It's really impressive.
Yeah. It's not boringly, that's for sure.
No, that's the best part. That's why you're here.
Exactly.
But I switching gears a little bit. This is kind of interesting because it coincides with a report that we're releasing. By the time that we release this, it will have been out, not for very long, but saw that you were a judge not too far, fairly recently, right? I think in the 2024 ANA In-House Excellence Awards. And
it's not, I've not judged yet, but I was asked to be a judge.
Oh, it's coming. Okay, good.
It's coming.
So there you go, kids. If keep up with Janet there, because I will want to follow up with you on that. But
of course,
we recently, as I said, in releasing this report, that was one of the questions that we're asking agencies and marketers about, in-house. And it's something that, you hear about and have for years, and it's not going away. However, in this particular report, marketers reported a slight decline in using in-house teams. Obviously, as I said, they're not going anywhere. But how do you, since you're going to be a judge there, right, how do you typically handle that, either in the past or even now when you're working with a client in terms of in-house folks?
You know what? It's not that much different, to be honest. We've worked with a bunch of in-house. I bet we've worked with at least 30 in-house agencies.
Wow. Okay.
Over the years.
Yeah.
And you know what? The thing is, it's all about communication. They do see things a little bit differently, but they're usually pretty close to the brand in a different way. It's, the ownership of it is a little bit different than an agency that's overseeing a brand.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of communication. They usually have less people. Because, if you have like an FCB Health behind you, you have tons and tons of people.
Sure.
Here you'll have 5 people or 3 people or sometimes even 1 person.
Yeah.
So they usually wear a lot of hats, and they're usually pretty happy to have a team that comes in and lets them do the strategy, lay out the plan, you work together on that, and then we're executing the tactics. And they're approving, and they typically approve faster. It can be, if you're working hand in glove, it can be a really nice relationship. I can tell you, we had a long gig with a hospital before it got acquired. And, it was a relatively small marketing team internally,
Okay.
but it was just a joy because they basically said, you're the experts in marketing. We're going to tell you what we want.
That's great.
You're going to go do it. We'll approve it. And then, go back and do more stuff for us. It was epic. I
awesome.
love that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you always want in those situations, right? And of course, it doesn't always work out that way. And
That's
especially if you've been there as an agency and then this team comes in, versus the opposite, the inverse. And we still, interestingly, and I get it, talk to agency principals that are still, I guess, threatened is the right word. And so it was interesting just to see, and I think it'll go up and down, and it has been for years. I don't think it was a mind-blowing stat, but it was just, it hadn't like gone down in the last couple of years. So it was just interesting to see marketers kind of throwing that out there. And speaking of that report,
I remember a lot of, hang on. So one of the things that I recall was when there was a rise of in-house marketing, a lot of the agency people were quite nervous about that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, they usually have just a few hands. They're always going to need help. It's not on the same scale because they'll do some stuff themselves. But what the in-house people realized was that's, you work together on these things and you can do more and better.
Sure. Yeah. And all makes total sense. And I would be in agreement with you completely. And I think the majority of our clients, if not all, feel the same way. And to your point, are working with those teams across the board, really, at this point. But speaking to our latest report again, one topic was, of course, this year, AI. And, it's going to be, it's all we've heard about, I feel like, and it's going to continue, right? Because I think the question now is, okay, well, how do we actually use this for our business if you're the client, or on the agency side for your client or for ourselves? And as I was looking and doing a little bit of research on y'all's side, I saw that, well, you all are kind of ahead of that curve, because I don't see a lot of agencies. There are certainly some, but that you've got it right there. You're incorporating it into your services. I mean, tell us about that, if you would.
Yeah. So I started playing around with it. Like my father worked for the government for over 30 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was working on ARPANET, which was one of the first iterations of the internet.
The internet. Okay.
And
right.
We had a ginormous computer in our house.
No way.
So
That's awesome.
he started talking to me, I think it was like early last year at dinner. And he poured me a real nice glass of wine. He said, how are you going to incorporate AI into your business?
Okay.
And honestly, I really hadn't been thinking about it a ton. He goes, if you don't, someone else will, and you'll lose to them.
Nice.
And I was like, heard, Dad, got it. So I got right on, and I was like, dang, check this out. So I started playing around with ChatGPT like many others.
Sure.
But what I realized was it can be used for concepting. It can be used for ideating. Right. It can be used to play around with copy. So, if I just need, it's almost like having another copywriter sitting with you. Mm-hmm. You put something in, and I've actually got mine set up so I can talk and interact.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Her name is Sky. So I'll say, Sky, I am working on this. I'm doing it from a mindset of this. What ideas do you have about that?
Cool.
And she'll spit out some stuff. And some of it is like complete crap. And some of it gives me a kernel of some really interesting stuff. So basically, I use her as someone to play off of. The other way we're using it is message testing. So we've actually used this pretty extensively now.
Okay.
We have access to synthetic respondents. So they're based on human beings that have then been built into synthetic respondents. So we will test our messaging. Right now, we can do it mostly generationally, which is super helpful.
Okay.
We did a campaign for a school, and we wanted to have both the parents and the kids' perspective. So we tested it on the synthetic respondents. And then based on those responses, we tweaked the copy until we were getting excellent scores.
Really? Interesting.
And by the way, we were helping promote an open house. I went by the high school on the night that they had their open house. There was not a parking spot to be had.
Really? That's great.
Yeah. So it was very successful.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to work on. So we're just doing a ton of testing with synthetic respondents because we can do it like this and reiterate like that quickly. Within 20 minutes, we can have our scores from here to there. And we know that it's going to play well with the target audience because it's based on the target audience.
Right.
So it's just, I did market research for Pfizer. Talk about soul sucking. Lord, God help me, Jesus. I mean, I love M&Ms, but how many M&Ms can you eat, for God's sakes? It's just horrible. And so I don't have a bias against market research because I see the value of it.
Yeah.
But when I can test something that I have confidence because it's based on human beings, I can get my work done faster and I can deliver those messages to the clients with confidence. Okay. So that's a big deal to me.
That's
fantastic.
That's
how we're using it right now.
Yeah, and I think that I've some of it's been anecdotal. Some I've actually talked directly to these agency principals, and I get it. That I understand the nervousness of, are we going to be replaced? And every human can say that too at this point. But
sure. I don't worry about that.
Yeah, I think you can't afford to. It was my point, really.
I don't care about that. I mean, basically what we've done, we said, how can we use this as a tool? How can it enhance our business? And frankly, it has. Yeah. So, I don't worry about that kind of stuff. Again, I'm somebody who's blown up their agency, going on 3 times. So I just don't worry about things like that. I take a look at how can we benefit? How can we help our clients do things better? Yeah. And how can we help the end user? Yeah. I mean, it's, you don't mind me saying, you don't need me to tell you, it's very smart of you in the sense of the other piece in that, not to keep going back to it, just because there's some interesting things there. One of the reasons that marketers gave us for reviewing new agencies, this has been in 3rd and 4th place the last 4 and 5 years. The first one, and it went up 17 points, was lack of proactivity by agencies, according to marketers. And sometimes it's well, okay, it's not always fair because you're only getting the one side. However, sure, if you're not getting into things like AI, specifically that, because you're afraid or whatever it might be, you're going to fall behind agencies like yours, because you are showing your clients we are on top of this, beyond on top of it. We're incorporating it into what we're doing for you, and we're keeping you ahead of the curve. Yeah. So I think it's fantastic. But it's been a blast. I mean, and again, the 111 group is not for everybody. And that's okay, because of how we're choosing to work. Yes, we're using AI and we're using it very successfully, but we're not going to be, everybody's cup of tea or bowl of soup or whatever the heck. And you don't really want to be. And that's fine, because there's plenty of business out there. So what we want to do is we want to find clients that fit with us and we fit with them. Yeah, no, absolutely. Which I think is exactly the way it should be. Let's jump in. I wanted to ask you if you have a favorite client story, either positive or negative. We always tend to ask that question, so I'm throwing it out to you, wide open. Okay. Well, I'm gonna do a little twist on that. All right. Oh. And I'm going to tell you a story of blowing up my company for the second time. Oh. The first time was after 9/11. Oh. No, I've blown it up. This will be the 3rd time. So the first time was after 9/11. Okay. Our company was mostly doing conference, the conference booth, all the conference materials. Oh, okay. We had a group that would actually travel to the conferences and person the booth. Mm-hmm. So when that business blew up literally with 9/11, we were working with, I want to say 20, 25 pharma companies and doing their conference booths for them. Oh, strictly pharma. But none of the doctors wanted to travel. Once 9/11 happened, nobody was wanting to travel. So we lost 80% of our business in one day. Oh my God. So, and it took months to recover. I mean, it was more than months, probably 6 months. Wow. But we had money in the bank. We were making plenty of money, so we had plenty of money in the bank. So we took the time. That's good. But then 3 months after 9/11, I found myself in a bar with my business partner, Kim Wilson, and I said, "We got to do something. We got to figure out another way." Yeah. And I said, "I'm onto something." And so I got a napkin and a pen, and by this time I'd probably had at least 2 cocktails. That I'm gonna which can help sometimes in those scenarios. Yeah, I know. So I had 2 Cosmos in me. I think I might have lit a cigarette even. And I said, we're going to come up with a new way to do sampling, because reps carry samples in to see the doctors. It's a waste of time. They're basically overpaid FedEx guys. It's stupid. So we're going to blow that up. And she was like, what in the holy hell are you talking about? And I said, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to create a program that is going to change how sampling's done. And I drew it on a napkin. Okay. And we created Sample Server. Sample Server became our mainstay of business in the next 13 years. Wow. We were working with 40 pharma companies, doing their sampling for them. We created a mobile sampling program for Hippocrates, where you could have all the samples from all the pharma companies. You could sign with your finger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That came from a 2 Cosmo drawing on a napkin idea.
That's amazing.
So what I realized, though, 13 years later, was that $6 billion of samples were going out. 2 billion of them were going in the trash. So it was going into landfills, in our water, and it was impacting our environment. So I did a TED Talk, and I blew up the company.
Huh.
I then got sued by one of the competitors who was kind of pissed off at me.
Oh, really?
That didn't go anywhere. But
good.
they were really cheesed about the whole thing, which is fine. So then you have to, roll things going forward. We went back to just being an agency of record. And then, this is the third time we've blown it up. But, what we found was by creating products, by offering products, we can work with other agencies. We can work with pharmaceutical companies. We can partner with others. That's where we've been most successful in my experience. So that's where we're going back to. We're actually working on some products for pharma again.
Oh, are you?
And,
okay.
I think that's going to then be my hurrah.
Okay.
So I'm going to blow up. I'm definitely intending to blow up how pharmaceutical companies work with agencies, because this billable hour 34 versions is not working, not for anybody.
Yeah.
And not for the end user either, because you get, by the time you're on version 38 of a brochure, you no longer give a shit, and I hate that. So I feel like it's just time for change. Okay. And I'm going to lead that.
I love it.
So
that's awesome.
I know, right?
Very cool.
It's an exciting time, like you bring in AI and new ideas.
Yeah.
And you just have to be brave enough to try it, because what the hell?
There's the quote. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. This has been awesome, Janet. So we have one more question, but thank you so much.
Of course.
I think everyone's going to get a lot out of this one. But the last question is, folks who watching, if you watched before, know this show is for agencies, but also for marketers, because we're sending that out to that audience as well. So I always like to ask one question that relates directly to them. And that is, so Janet, if you could give one piece of advice to marketers to make their agency relationships more effective, what would you tell them if I'm the marketer and you're sitting in front of me?
Sure. Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. One of the problems that I've seen is that people have stopped talking to each other. They'll send an email, they'll send a text. And instead of dealing with things when it's early in the stages, kind of like cancer, like don't let it grow, deal with the problem. That's fair. If you take care of a problem early by communication, your agency never wants to let you down. They don't. And I think most marketers are decent human beings also. Sure. So it's just pick up the phone, address whatever's going on, keep the communication lines open, but also get together for lunch once in a while. If you break bread with your agency, you have a different relationship. Like and this is all about relationships and communications. And remember, that you're dealing with a human being who has a life too. Yeah. They're not just doing your stuff. They also have other stuff going on. So ask them how that's going once in a while. Build that relationship, not just the agency person with you, but also with them. So make it a two-way street. Wow.
That is a great ending. Janet Carlson of 111 Group. Thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Lee.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time and cut to the chase.
Okay.